workshop, no need to call the meeting to order. We have an agenda of approximately 8 items. And first up, talking about...
Well, before we start, I want to have some, I would like to have one taken off because it's subject to litigation. That's item number 3.
Special permit for businesses in R1.
Correct.
Okay. So starting off the top, 3 unrelated cases and outcomes.
I don't believe there's any that I'm involved in that are being prosecuted presently. I'm not sure if you guys brought actions against people that I have a conflict with. No. Okay.
There's there is one.
I think we don't need to
Is it
talk
the one
about.
I'm thinking it is?
Are you thinking more past?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it would be helpful moving forward if we knew what's.
Typically, what the strategy has been in terms of defending against these actions when they're brought is this. The action is brought, Bob will fill out the deposition or an affidavit, and the case will become prosecuted. The respondent, the person that's being told they can't have 3 or more unrelated, then appeals to the zoning board. The zoning board has so far upheld Bob's decision generally. And then there's an Article 78 that goes to Supreme Court. In the last year, we had one where a number of were properties, and that was the result. We attempted to work out a resolution, but the stipulation that we entered into wasn't honored, and as a result, that may be going back to litigation. But other than that, I don't want to say too much more names because that's really not appropriate. But that's sort of what the process is, and maybe some things that we might want to consider is considering some changes to the way that process works in terms of the appeal and this interpretation process, and whether or not what is being used as an interpretation, which says in the code that it's a conflict between laws, is being more broadly defined than it ought to be. And I have not challenged it, sort of want people to be able to go somewhere to appeal cases, but it seems to be used a little bit more strategically, and that whether or not an interpretation is required simply when the court officer disagrees, that there might be other processes. So I take a look at it. I've been doing a little bit of research on that, whether or not we can have a different forum so that there is a way to do that, so it's more productive than simply going through the lawsuits that we have recently. Not a terrible amount of lawsuits. There's not like overwhelming number of lawsuits. Like 1 or 2 last year, kind of deal. In terms of time or effort, but it does slow down the process and it does discourage the bringing of the complaints and the process that we need to go through.
Okay.
Rick, can you back up when you first started?
Sure.
What you mentioned about what was going on in the cases?
Oh, no, he would bring, that's Bob's job, is to do the investigations up front, to prepare the pleadings for the court, to provide me with the pleadings for court. Obviously ask me questions before he does that, but that's Bob's responsibility. He does fine. But once that happens, what is allowed is that there is what's called a stay. So when there's an appeal to the zoning board, the prosecution typically stops until that process is completed. In some instances, the zoning board has come back and said, no, they can do it, and then we end the prosecution. That was probably 2 or 3 years ago. I can recall we had one. And then another one that was similar, the parking was more of the issue. And that was addressed by going to, I don't know what the fire commissioner or whoever does parking issues, and they were provided the opportunity to park 4 or 5 cars or something. I don't remember the particular details, but again, it's an administrative process that taxpayers have available to them.
Now, when Bob makes these cases, he brings them to you?
No. Bob makes the cases, he files them with the court.
Is Bob able to go to court when these hearings are going on?
Yeah, he's available for trials. I show up to the court for the regular appearances, just like a DA would. When a police brings the case. The police don't come to every appearance until they're needed for a trial or a hearing.
And Bob, have you been to some of these?
No.
Reason for that is what?
I was told I was a witness and
Was
wait
it
until
called?
I'm called. Yeah.
But subpoenaed and we get to work out or something.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been actually called.
I was
Called
gonna,
for one of these.
I was gonna ask about number 4. How can we tighten up the timeline between finding out about code violations and bringing them to court? Do you have ideas about that?
I spurred these guys on that.
I would tell you that, not real specific to the 3 unrelated law, but generally that has not been our goal. Taking it to court is a huge amount of time. The goal of codes is compliance.
Absolutely.
The amount of time that we spend to take something to court, a recent case, a court preparation, and I don't even remember the term, Rick can tell you that, but we're 700-800 pages that Roy had to prepare for that.
So how
It took
about,
him days to do that.
fair enough, that's a good distinction. So how about between compliance and citations? Is there a way to tighten up that timeline?
We could probably work with the notice of violation. The process is this, that they are given a complaint, but it goes through any one of them. And if there's an investigation and the officers determine that there is a violation or something that's out of whack, a notice of violation is sent to the homeowner. You have 30 days to correct whatever issue it is. You fix your porch, move the fourth person out if that's the issue, whatever it might be, there's this period. The only way I see shortening it is to make that a shorter period of time if we can. I've never been really asked to do that research.
Set the state fire code.
Yeah.
So that's really where that comes in. So that 30 days is kind of locked.
We do have some leeway on that, like 65.
Sure, sure. If there's an emergency, I mean, you shut the house down and do those kind of things. But rarely is there people in emergency that say, life or death. We're not getting to that. Once it's in the court system, once any number of complaints are filed, I'm at the mercy of the courts and the system, and they've changed the system this year. OCA has different court dates. For example, they only are requiring me to be here once a month. So any code case or like even a noise violation or littering violation that I'm the prosecutor on is the first Monday of the month, and then I don't come back until the next one, unless there's a special circumstance or they specifically ask that I come over from across the hall. So that's not a tremendous burden, but that's how it's scheduled. So there's not much to do that I can do about that. That's where OCA. They've taken up the court time. Tuesdays are trials now. Wednesdays are morning and afternoon courts for regular criminal activities. Fridays are down for sentencing. Mondays, when it's not my day, is for arraignments in the morning and then drug court in the afternoon. So the time of court is difficult. It used to be Monday, Wednesday, Fridays for prosecuting courts, and I can move to the next week. So they're pretty good about it. If I've gotten a case, we have a recent case where we're trying to get the fellow to supply some architectural plans to redo a faulty porch. He was due Monday, but he had an architect who was going to come in, and so the judge said, yeah, well, let's wait till Friday, give him a chance to, at least try to do this. So, I was ready to battle last Friday to take care of that. We are. But generally speaking, they filled up the court with all this other stuff. This is part of the new reforms that you've all heard of. And so, as much as I'd like to think that we're a priority on code cases and code violations, it doesn't rise to the level of DWIs and drug cases and domestic violence cases, and we do have to take a backseat to that, rightfully so.
Would one possible solution be having a housing court?
That's, we've talked about that before, and certainly that would help. Who would it be, where we would house it? I mean, right now we're jammed for space as is with OCA. So I don't know where that would be and what kind of staffing it would be and where you're going to, how are you going to afford it. I haven't really looked into it terribly deeply, other than to say, I know when we had a meeting with Scott Berto not long ago, I think you were here, Katie. I don't know who else, but he was describing some of the difficulties of starting a forming report. You have to get some state approval. There's money involved. Where you going, how much you're going to pay the judge. You're going to give the judge a clerk. You're going to have a counselor, some sort of chambers for the judge. There's a variety of things. I don't know that would necessarily help. We're not bringing that many cases to court. I think these guys are doing a great job with compliance issues and getting it done before it gets to that point. And I don't disagree that that has always been, when Bill was here, when Chief Glover was the code officer before that, the compliance, the first instance always was what everybody attempted to do. And even when it gets to court, the compliance is still the goal. I mean, that doesn't go away. It just becomes a different tool to use to get them to comply. But still the goal is compliance.
It sounds like the bottleneck is still preparing the cases, from what I can see.
Yeah, no question. It's it's not necessarily as understandable as a speeding ticket or even an assault case that the police have. Typically they, even in an assault case, they'll have a one-page supporting deposition. I got slugged in the nose, and then a complaint on the front page where the cop signs it, and that's what gets filed. It takes an afternoon to do that, or not even. The length of time is all only to get the supporting deposition from the victim. There may be some medical records for that example. It's not the same with it. It's far more technical, it's far more intricate in detail relative to the violations, and it does take longer. No question about it. I agree.
How could we remedy this?
I think there are other ways we can work on preparing the informations, but right now the process is what it is.
Okay, well, moving forward, that's the goal, so.
Of course.
I'd really like to see us come up with a way to hire outside counsel to deal with these issues.
Why?
Because they just need to get done, enforced.
You think I'm not doing it?
I never insinuated that. But you got a full plate. I have a full plate.
My full plate includes this work.
I'm not even getting a shouting match. I'm just telling you that my
Not
personal
shouting.
feeling is, we need outside counsel to deal with all this code stuff, unrelated laws and everything, because all we're doing, we're making ourselves not look very professional. When I say we, all of us, I'm not speaking you, I'm talking about myself.
Yeah, bar, okay. I don't know how else council's gonna help, but.
Well, I wish I could help.
Well, I think Troy has a point in one sense, and I came late to this, and I don't want to retread old stuff, I don't know what you already covered. But if we have to do something different, I'm not exactly sure what that is, that's one of the reasons I want to leave this meeting, folks.
But maybe it might help all of us, is that we hear this all the time, those of us that are trying to do this every day, that, oh, we're not doing this, we're not doing that. But what is it that you're hearing that's not being done? I mean, these guys are working their asses off trying to get
Whatever it is
compliance
that
on
we're
code
doing,
issues.
whatever it is that we're doing doesn't seem to be effective when it comes to something like an R1 neighborhood where there's a proliferation of rental properties where people are obviously violating the 308 meters. It's been going on for a couple of years, Rick. I know my neighbors brought some cases to Bob. They talked to the girls in the house. They told them there were 4 in the house. So, something is not happening that should be happening. I don't know what that is. I have no doubt everybody's working as hard as they can possibly work, but it doesn't seem to be solving the problem.
I mean, it's a singular issue, this three unrelated. That seems to be the.
That is a huge issue in the third ward, and it's proliferated beyond, in some instances, the third ward. It's not just a hill issue. People think it is. It's not. When we moved into that neighborhood,
All right,
all those homes were family. There's houses on Broadway now that people are asking me about. There's houses in areas that were never like that before.
How many complaints do you get a week from people about three unrelateds?
It varies. I might get, last last week, I got about a dozen, but then I'll go weeks with none. But what do you define a complaint? If someone doesn't leave their name, if there's no evidence, it's just, well, I think there are more than 3 kids in this house. They complain, but I have nothing to go on. You know, it's kind of hard.
And that's what we have to change, figure out how we can go, when students say to people, yeah, there's 4 of us in this house, and we're not able to do anything about that, then we have to do something differently.
Maybe what we have to do differently is something that else has been proposed, is to think about it differently, and that is to make the punishment of the crimes that 3 unrelated suggest, the people crimes, the noise, the littering, the parking, and make those fines stiffer and more enforceable by more people. Because when you start enforcing the things that make neighborhoods uncomfortable, it's not, they could be 4 very quiet people in the house, you never know, but if it's 3 noisy people can be disruptive. And do we punish the persons that are making the neighborhood uncomfortable? You know, deal with the crowd issue, cars parking on the street or parking on the front lawn. Deal with those by punishing that more heavily. If they're making noise, let's change the fine structure so it's not just a cost of doing business for a college student to come in and pay $50. So that it is a more memorable fine. We started enforcing the party statute. That's been very effective. That's a significant fine, and it does work. It does. We don't get the repeats when it's being prosecuted. And so maybe we have to start thinking less about 3 or 4 people, but what 3 or 4 people are doing to make the neighborhood uncomfortable. I live in a college neighborhood, so you're not talking to someone that doesn't live there, and I know what it is. I don't get a lot of complaints, but my house is surrounded by students.
And I don't help the fact that if there is 4 people there.
There's another aspect, though, I would want to address here that I think we're missing. And I agree with what you just said, and I'm all for moving in that direction, that
I am
one
too.
more, quiver, so to speak, one more tool to use. But the other thing is, what I'm told, and I don't know if this is true, but if you're only putting 2 or 3 students in a house, you're not making it doesn't make financial sense. When you put the 4th and 5th student in there, it makes financial sense. Well, what happened, and the students are not, by and large, troublesome, but it changes the integrity of the neighborhood.
Exactly.
And when all of a sudden you have 3 houses in a row that are vacant for 2 or 3 months of the year, it changes it. It's not the same as when there's families there and people are attending to, their front yards and their backyards. And instead of paving over, usually with gravel, not violating code, but it's not a lawn anymore. It's a different flavor to the neighborhood. Well, I thought the R1s were put in place to maintain residential homes, traditional family, whatever the heck that is.
Stability.
That's what I thought was the reason for that years ago. Am I wrong?
No, you're right.
No, it's 2 things. I mean, when you do these district maps, like, for example, we just did, we're looking at the nature of the community that's there right now. That's part of how we determine if that's an R1 zone and R2. We don't have large flats of land that are vacant. We're going to say, we want the 7-Eleven here, and we want houses here, and we want, apartment buildings there. But that's not a luxury we have. We have to recognize what exists presently when we're making these districts. And sure, when the College Hill was, started, my house was built in the 1930s, for example. They were traditional families there. And that's always been reflective of the R1. So has the definition of the 3 unrelated. That's the statute that is held with the family definition that exists. And those are defined as reasonable in those particular areas. I don't know what we can do to make traditional families want to buy those houses. It's sort of a chicken or the egg kind of a problem, I think, some people say, well, I don't want to live on the College Hill because there's all those college kids. And there's all those college kids because no one wants to live on the hill as a traditional family. Which came first? And so what can we do to incentivize traditional families buying up there so that the people that are selling their house for the best price they can get, sell them to people that want to use them for a real estate investment, their business, quite frankly.
And most of us have no issue with that as long as they're following what the zoning regulations are saying. And when they aren't, then it seems to me that we have a problem.
My neighbors, I have college students that live right next to me in Archive. Do I have a problem with them once in a while? Yeah. A little loud? Yeah. I go knock at the door and I say, do you really want to talk to your landlord? And okay, my size has a little bit to do with it. Fine, but,
They're not, I'm not saying that they're causing noise issues and things like that. Lots of times they are, and they are
that's,
resolved.
what I wanted to say is,
But don't
you gotta be
you-
real careful about saying you don't want 4 college students living in a house, because your next thing coming is a bed, or a person, or, you know, a person, I mean, you know what I'm saying, less than subpar houses. And I gotta tell you, for the most part, not all the time, but for the most part, these other landlords that you're referring to take care of the problem. And there's other ones that don't.
I'm not here to talk about that, or like, I don't disagree with that stuff. I don't think I have said any of that. I haven't said.
No, I'm just trying to, I don't think you have either. I'm just trying to let you know that,
I get that it's a market issue. I understand it's a market county. And I don't know. what
But
to do
lots
about
of
some
neighborhoods
I don't know what we can do. Sometimes these homes they're sold and nobody knows about it. There's not like a for sale sign on the lawn. Hey, they're selling a house. Please, you know, my son would like to come back. Some of these things that are snapped up before they go, people know about. Us regular folks know about it. Obviously, somebody knows about it because they're buying that up.
there's a lot of them.
And I get that
Downstairs buying stuff.
that's a market kind of thing. I don't know what the solution is. But I'm not quite ready to throw up my hands and say there's nothing we can do about it. And that's what I've been hearing for about 3 years now. And I guess it's like, I think there is something we can do. But other communities have done. I think maybe we can look at other places and see what other communities have done.
I guess if the commission is having that be a traditional neighborhood, that is a more difficult because we don't necessarily have traditional families to support that goal. If the goal is safety, I think we probably need to look at different avenues.
The goal is twofold though, and a primary part of the goal is that there's been slippage. We're talking about R1 districts that have been eroded, and now they've lost their stability, and if we were able to maintain that stability, there would be people who would be moving in there. There would. And as it is, we get people who put their houses on the market and they sit there longer, and then
I know the house across the street from mine was on the market for a number of years because the family that lived there wouldn't sell to someone that was going to use it for college housing. And that was ultimately it sold to a family, nice family, but that was their resolve.
I mean, the college has a program, and I don't know the boundaries, so I'll have to do that, but they actually will offer some incentives to people if they buy in that district. I think they get some towards a down payment. I don't know how well publicized. If I go to our website, city website, I don't see anything on that. I don't know how well publicized that is. I don't know if that's something we can stand. I don't think there is any one answer to this. It's the rule we'd already solved, and I now just difficult what we can do about it. So I think we have to approach it from a lot of different angles, and I think that's one of the things we can look into. It's an economics issue. If some people are going to get a down payment, help towards a down payment, they might be more willing to purchase a home if they had an opportunity to know it's for sale.
we also need to work with realtors. And we have people getting misinformation. We get people who move in and then say, I didn't know.
All good points, but who are you thinking of working with these realtors?
Well, we need a consistent plan and then message that we get out. And so
Are you looking for us to do that, or are you looking for you guys to do that?
possibly in your different departments, like Bob could see when
Everybody
properties
has a
have
question
sold
whether
and
it's a
send
single
out
family house or it
information.
can be a 3 unrelated house, and certainly.
I take calls every day from
Right,
realtors.
or do your research on your deed and abstract or whatever to make sure it's done correctly. I know a lot of people buy houses, think they can put kids in there, and we can't.
Some of the things that the communities have done, and I've looked into this, is that you only allow so many of these buildings in a block. And once you've exceeded that, that's it. Ithaca, every other house, you're allowed to have
Yeah,
a residence of.
That,
So there are options. We just need to take that next step forward.
yeah, we sort of explored that. When, as you recall, one of the proposals from the people in Rochester that did the new code or helped us with the new code wanted to do something like that. There's can only be so many non-traditional houses within, like, I don't know, 500 feet or something like that. That has not passed constitutional muster in most communities because we can't restrict who someone sells their house to or what they use their house for. Nothing says that if Mary and I move away from our house, we can't put three unrelated people in there. We don't have to sell it in order to use it for that purpose, so long as it's within the goals of the law. And because there are some constitutional restrictions on the municipalities restricting who people can sell things to, I've never recommended that particular point of view and asked that you not consider it in the last zoning modification, as you may recall. I get it, but I don't think we can do it properly under the law as exists now.
I don't think that's really their concern about if someone wants to sell a house and get three unrelated or three related.
Right.
The issue is how many houses are out there now that have more than three unrelated. And these be the three gentlemen that would know the answer.
Yeah.
That's not getting enforced.
Yeah.
That's why we're here.
So
I
that's,
think that's me. Get right down to the fact that
We don't care if somebody goes out partying and makes too much noise. You can find them. Granted, I might be in agreement with it. Maybe we should make it more harsh. But that's not gonna solve the problem.
Well, I mean, so
These guys make a case, they go there and investigate. I don't know, they could probably tell us if they wanted to or not, how many houses are out there now that have more than three unrelated, there should only be three. That's what we need to go ahead.
and I don't think we're gonna solve it tonight.
Correct, we're
I
not.
think it's just, this is just to kind of
But we don't
be
need
on
to
the
set
same
into the next
page.
5 more years to keep talking about it,
Right.
because we're not doing anything about it. And our object, our goal here is to go after these people and let it be known that's what we're doing, and that's why we're here.
Right. So let this be the beginning of our discussion. And
Well, so we can do the best job in the world we can.
And I think you guys do a good job. You don't need to do
Everybody
it.
else here, okay? But it still goes, and I don't want to point fingers and make assumptions, it still goes in front of one more person, yes.
Yeah.
And that was what we talked about earlier, let's simplify it,
Has the final
let's get
say.
justice, move on.
And that one person, if she says, or if they say, or whoever says, you know, not guilty or discharged, that's it. And then we gotta go through the whole process all over again, it's not gonna make anybody happy. That's why I suggest the housing code. And I know it's difficult, we don't have that, we don't have that.
and that sounds like a panacea. It's not. You're not going to have a housing court judge that is the code enforcement officer that's going to agree with Roy and Tom and Mike every single time.
Right.
And we can't expect that.
But
So
they can
that
have
is.
knowledge, more of a knowledge base than the current situation, I guess. In terms of what we do. I'm not, how do I say this? I'm not saying no one's unknowledgeable.
Right, right.
I'm saying that sometimes what we do takes more of a knowledge base in what we do, and not the law in general.
But if we don't accomplish anything and go after these people, unfortunately, we don't need all you people, because we're not doing anything.
We're doing a lot of other things.
No, I know, but I'm just saying that.
The three unrelated in particular, we put a lot of effort in,
You just want
nothing's
to happen.
happening, and nothing happens. We've been told it's not enough evidence, it's not.
Folks, what you're hearing here is from us, and if I'm speaking internally, is the frustrations. We're frustrated, and the people that we're knocking on doors and talking to are frustrated, and they want to know why things aren't happening. So, it's frustration is what you're.
We know
hearing.
that.
That's what you're hearing.
I get frustrated when like Captain said, when I do a 3,000 sheet case, and it gets tossed.
And I can see, I do understand
So, as a council, how can we better support you? You don't have to come up with that right now. You can
In relation to the three unrelated or overall?
Overall.
We don't
Each.
have enough people. That is, when I came 18 and a half years ago, we had 4 full-time code officers and a full-time administrative assistant. Now we have 2 full-time code officers. I'm over there most of the time, but my position in the fire department hasn't been filled. I'm still going back there, trying to do my job over there, keep up with that. Devin does a great job. She's budgeted half and half because she's still the mayor's secretary, and that takes a lot of time. We're close to half of what we had 18 and a half years ago, and because the old code program, we don't have access to anymore, but my guess is we're about twice the volume of things that we do. We are handling, on average, about a complaint and a permit for every hour the office is open. Each one of those, on average, is taking 2 inspections. A permit takes somewhere between 2 and 5 or 6 inspections. A complaint takes anywhere between 1 and 5 or 6 inspections. We've been told by the council that they'd like us to do more community-based code enforcement, get ahead of things like the sidewalks and the grass. We can't do that if we're doing these other scheduled activities. It's just, the only reason it's stayed up as well as it has is because Bob and Tom and Roy especially have really been, especially those 3, I didn't mean to single out Roy in particular. I saw Tom cringe a little bit. He was gonna have to hear about that tomorrow in the office. But they're the ones that have kept us afloat. It's because of how hard they're working, but it can't, the level is not, we struggle to keep up. And it's not that we have a surge here and there. It's consistent, and it's consistent over a number of years. This year it is going to be an exception, particularly with building permits. I don't think we've ever issued this many building permits or been aware of this many projects coming down the pike as we're going to have this year. It will be unprecedented in the last 20 years.
That's a good thing.
It's a good thing, but please understand, I don't, the people that we have, we are not going to keep up with the have-to-dos, or will struggle to keep up with the have-to-dos. That there won't, with our current staffing, to expect that these guys are out doing patrols every day just isn't going to be realistic.
Well, how many firefighters do you have right now that are, I'm not sure the right word, authorized or trained to go out and do inspections, besides you 3 guys? How many do you have?
3?
They already do,
Look
I
at
think,
fire chief, I think it's about 23.
23.
4 of our units, I believe they do.
Okay.
The fire department's doing.
So
that.
with those, we send, every week we send 6 inspections to the fire department, multiple residency inspections or commercial inspections. So they're doing 6, plus almost all of those involve at least 1 re-inspect, some 2. So we're sending a lot over to the on-duty, what we would call the duty shift.
Yeah.
And they're doing that in addition to the other things that they're doing. And
Is that getting pretty evenly distributed? I mean, is everybody chipping in, or is it?
yes,
just a few people?
absolutely. It's very, there's always, on the paperwork, I think we see more names sometimes than others. It doesn't mean that they're not participating in it. But it's fairly evenly distributed between the shifts and between the individuals.
Because I was around when we made that change, and that, one of the reasons they made that was to give the code more people to help with inspections. Without
Right.
having to hire more people. Because to be honest, Captain, honestly, I don't know if we're gonna be able to hire more people. I mean, every department, everybody in America is working as hard as they can if you're working pretty much, So I get what you're saying, and I wish I could say, yeah, we can hire 3 more firefighters. I don't see that happening, so we're gonna have to make do with what we have. I know you guys are all working hard. Maybe in conjunction with the mayor, maybe we make some priorities about what things we want you to address first, knowing that you can't do everything on a 15-item list. You know, you gotta start with the 3 most important things or something. I mean, you know, our expectations have to be realistic. So I get that. When you're saying you can't do everything, okay, so then I think it's on us to decide what we feel is the most important things for you guys to do.
We've had a lot of things added to our plates over the years.
Yep.
From sidewalks to cleaning up, not cleaning up, but policing garbage. That was never the code office's job before. That's something that's been given to us by other departments. And, you know, you can't continue to say do more with less.
Right.
You can't.
So you gotta do something. You
The
can't do
council
more.
did to expand that though, so that the police are now authorized to make an arrest for the littering and the sort of trash that were happening, you know, like on Compton Street and Clayton Ave. I don't know how many they've made. I only get a report if there's a trial or something, that someone pays the fine, I don't know about it, but,
Yeah,
there has been some
knocking on doors.
efforts to do that.
They're knocking on doors on Saturday and Sunday
Yeah.
mornings too, yes, they are.
And I would also tell you, I think that we are missing revenue opportunities as far as inspections, because we're behind on inspections. Permit renewals, you know, we're not as good about following up on them as we've been in the past, and it's directly through work. You know, town does a great job of trying to keep up with the rental permits, but, you know, at 3 years exactly when they expire, they're not always getting the reminder right away. That may be delayed by other things. A building permit, when it expires, you know, we do our best to follow up with that, but it doesn't always happen. And I would tell you the same thing with complaints. We do our best to follow up, but sometimes you follow up 3 or 4 times, and, you know, there's other priorities, and we're not doing a great job with some of that, and it's directly because of workload.
While we're at it, if there are ways that we can support zoning and law department, I'd like to hear about it. You should hear about it. And if we don't, you know, have a lot of money in the budget to throw around, if you have thoughts, share them.
well, I think maybe what they need to hear that is the priority is prosecuting 3 unrelated, or whatever the statute is. Is that the priority rather than the trash in the backyard or the broken down porches or the failure to paint the house? Then they need to know that, so that the load that they have can be changed.
Which is what you were saying.
I think that's a discussion we need to have in conjunction with the mayor.
Yeah.
And we all report to the mayor, so we have to work with the mayor on these things and see what your priorities are. Well, you're here as well, you know, so I don't have the answer for that right now.
No, I understand that, but
I have a personal preference, but I'm just one of several people, so I think we need to get together on it.
I'm sure the trash calls are just coming in left and right.
They do, you know, we do have the extra person to help, but that's a more obvious problem than whether or not there are 3 or 4 people in a house or 10 people in a house. It's right in the face of trash.
I mean, it's all important. I'm not saying it's not important. You know, I just think I will. You know, I hear what you're saying, Captain. There's only so many hours a day, and so many people. So, you know, you have to see a priority, and then other things are sort of get to them when you get to them. And I understand what you're saying. It makes sense. You know, we can't expect you guys to do everything every day based on personnel. So,
Especially when your load is double.
And you have a finite budget. If we had an unending budget, we could just take everything. But we have a finite budget right now, and you have to work within that, so you have to give different.
we have a lot of constraints.
Right.
You know, I hate to say this, but I think, I tend to sit back and observe more than I do speak about things. And what I'm seeing is that us as a council do not have the experience or the knowledge to kind of dictate how this office should proceed. What I recommend is we hire somebody to do a case study of the facility to see how we can best utilize personnel and what we have on hand, and just do the recommendation, and then move forward. Because this isn't the first time I've sat through one of these meetings, and I'm sure it's not gonna be the last. The mayor can contest, years ago, when we first started, looking at rental properties. We had meeting after meeting. And here we are today, further ahead, but we're still beating our heads against the wall, trying to figure everything out.
I was city attorney 30 years ago. John E. was the code officer, civilian, and then it's all changed since then. It's changed all the time.
Well, I'm not opposed to what you're saying. I think I would hope that the process of what you're talking about, what if we did this and we followed through this, certainly the community would have to be part of that conversation too, because we're hearing from our constituents what they want us, what they want us to work on, what they see as issues. So that's, the next person can say this, but if that's not what our constituents are saying, that's got to be part of the conversation.
Absolutely.
We had a group that does that sort of management review for like facility needs and have the expertise in helping with this. And I can reach out to see what kind of cost it would be for them to do that kind of an analysis to provide some answers, personnel-wise and maybe priority-wise help out with that, certainly. So I can't think of the name right now, but they did the facility study when we were for the city hall and police and fire stations.
I think everyone here has some good ideas tonight, but no one really organized this into some kind of a goal as to how you want to proceed with this. What's their first step and what's their last step? Right now, we're going in every direction, but we haven't really focused on really what you want to get out of this meeting tonight.
This was our first opportunity to get all three departments in the same meeting, so it was just a talk.
They knew what they had to say.
Yes. And I really appreciate you coming and sitting down with us.
So we've got about 10 minutes until 7 and the start of the council meeting.
Michael, can you put some numbers together, just in the last 2 or 3 years of it? I don't spend a lot of time here, not to do, but I want roughly to see, you went from 50 building permits to 300, 20 trash calls, 200, I mean, he wants to keep some type of record. Just to get us some rough ideas, just do it this weekend.
Troy, if I may, I have a very large building permit that I've been going back and forth and looking at, sitting on in front of my desk right now, that I've been pulled away from quite frequently because of walks, trash, people calling about their houses, and it's for a downtown property. It needs to get taken care of because, we want our downtown to be our interested in everything else, but because of everything else we got going on, that's just as important to everybody else. Bruce's constituents want their walks done, and they don't want trash all over the place. The person who put this building permit in and paid a lot of money for it wants that ASAP too. So all your constituents want everything done great, that's fine with them. Like I said, I live in the city too. I want stuff done too. I get it. You guys are under.
But I'm just saying, when you guys mentioned you're telling us you're understaffed, and in order to tell us, if it ever goes anywhere, we're gonna need some numbers, to see what we can do. Doesn't have to happen today or tomorrow. It won't. No, but I understand.
Thanks, Miles. Thanks, Miles. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thanks very much.
All right, so we'll wrap up the work session. Council can discuss and decide if you want to come back and have a meeting, another workshop or some other options. But one of the things I do recommend, if there's the perception that a property is not in compliance, bring it forward to the code zoning officer in particular, because then that starts the process in terms of following up. So if it's a blanket, well, we think that there's properties that are not in compliance, bring the address and why somebody thinks that it's overoccupied, and allow the zoning officer to do his job in terms of following up. I think he's working hand in hand with code and then moving forward with the city attorney, taking the right steps. Take 4 minutes. You got 6:54, take about 4 or 5 minutes. Stretch your legs, grab a drink of water.